Welcome back to the Behind the Well Show. I'm your host, Roger Abel. Elias Randall with me. Headline for today. Americans are more worried about running out of money in retirement than dying. No kidding.
Of course they are.
I remember doing workshops at restaurants 15 years ago, and I put this little slide up, and it said, you know, there's only one thing worse than running out of money. And that's running out of lifestyle. And that's really what people are concerned about. They're not worried about running out of money. They're concerned about running out of lifestyle. Because if you're used to a certain lifestyle, it's really, really hard to adjust.
That's probably the number one thing that keeps people working. I don't think anyone, I think if someone were to look at their situation and think, okay, I could decrease my lifestyle and retire, or I could just keep working and have the same lifestyle. People will continue working to have the same lifestyle.
I would.
Yeah, why? I mean, you've already been doing it for 30 years. Why wouldn't you?
And most people, if they want to keep the same lifestyle, because I know the savings rate of America, they're going to have to. I actually think the big surprise for this comes with high income earners.
Well,
I do.
I suppose, what are you getting at? Because like they're limited on what they can save because of maximum contributions.
Let's just pull out a doctor, physician, whatever, right? So they go to school for whatever, a decade. I'm sure it's that long, right? About a decade. So they get out of school.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Me either. Well, I mean, not yet. Could go to school long enough, maybe be called a doctor. But anyway, a decade, let's say, because they do 4-year college, 4 years med, and then they do a internship or fellowship, whatever they call it. So a decade. And get out there 33, and what do they got in student loans? $500,000. They're making a decent wage. By the time they get those student loans paid off, they're probably in their mid-40s. They're finally like hitting some critical mass, but they've had a nice house. I mean, I'm just giving you, laying out what it looks like. Couple of kids, wife doesn't work, start making money. So they probably don't want to work forever. So they have their lifestyle, they're saving their money, but most of them, if they start saving at 45 and being super diligent, won't put enough away to maintain that same lifestyle in retirement. And, you know, whether it's their fault, and it's clearly their fault, but the system is set up in a fashion where to maintain a $300,000-$500,000 lifestyle, it's really hard to accumulate that much money in some type of a retirement employer-sponsored plan.
Yeah, well, there's
if
max
you want,
contribution limits. So
right.
there are people who, well, I'm maxing my retirement accounts every year. But you're absolutely right. They're doing what they can, but that may not be enough. There are certainly people that's not going to be enough savings to live their current lifestyle when they're done working.
Well, I believe it's the number one thing that we do for people is we try to manage the expectations of one, what do I need to do to get to financial independence? But secondly, we're helping manage the fear that people have of outliving their resources or money in retirement. That is, if you look at what a financial plan does for people, it's 3 things. Am I on track? And if not, what do I need to do? What's my risk capacity? How much risk do I need to take to be successful? And 3, what do I need to do to manage my resources so I don't run out? Those are the 3 real things that it does. It gets you there, gets you how much risk you need to take, and then 3rd, helps you overcome the fear of outliving your money.
And those 3, yeah, when you boil it down, those are the 3 big things. And people probably communicate that in a different way, but those are the main 3 things. And that's really what we're managing for them is overcoming those obstacles, keeping them on track. But What do you think is stopping people from knowing that they have all those three areas covered and knowing that they'll be successful?
Well, I think first, it's like going to the doctor. They don't really want to know. Like a lot of people don't want to go get the diagnosis because they're fearful of what it might tell them.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is when I go to the doctor, I'm always fearful what they're going to tell me, right? There's always the unknown diagnosis you're going to get, or, they're kind of telling you you're not doing a good job doing this. No one wants to be told they're not doing something well. And that's really what happens when you do a financial plan. All the good things that you're doing come to light, but also all the bad things, right? All the things that need improvement. And probably one of the number one reasons is people, once again, really enjoy their lifestyle. And we get lifestyle creep and lifestyle inflation. And most people that enjoy their lifestyle don't want to go sit down with a financial advisor that might tell them, hey, your lifestyle doesn't support, your retirement savings isn't going to support this lifestyle. Because that means they have to make changes to it. So one of the things
people do not like change.
No, but one of the things people have to understand is if your lifestyle is infringing upon your retirement, you kind of have to ask yourself why. Why are you letting this happen? And then there's really like 10 things that you can look at, 10 ways to kind of fight that lifestyle inflation. But first thing you have to do is ask yourself why. Why are we letting this happen to ourselves?
I think one of the worst things people can do is just not understand their why. Like what are the reasons you're doing what you're doing, or what are the reasons you want to do the things you want to do? Because your goals really need that, and you need something that drives you more than, well, I want to have a lot of money, right? That's very arbitrary. Everybody wants to have a lot of money. But what is behind that? What does that do for you? What does that provide for you, your family? What is that going to accomplish?
Once you kind of figure out why, you have to figure out what is enough. And one of the things that I found is when you set an arbitrary goal of having more money or being wealthy, it's really easy to keep moving the goalpost. Meaning, hey, maybe your first goal is, I want to make X amount of money. Well, then once you hit it, most people that set a goal and accomplish it don't keep the goal the same. By human nature, we move the goalpost. And I think the second part, after people figure out why, is you have to define what's enough. Like, what are the things in life that fulfill you? And some of this goes back to the books that Jonas has written about, hey, what's important to you in life? How do you define what lifestyle investments are? And that'll kind of tell you what's enough, because most of the time, the more successful you get, the more things you think you're going to need. We need a bigger house. We need nicer cars. We need more vacations. If you sit back and say, hey, what's really important to us? Typically, it's not all of those things. There's 1, 2, or 3 things at the top of the list.
Well, and those are your lifestyle investments. Those are the things that are most important to you. So defining what is enough to have those versus what is enough to have every luxury in life, 2 different conversations.
Well, and here's what I found with people that hit what I would call a level of critical mass from their income and their savings and their wealth building. And it's that there's a time when you're starting out and becoming successful. And let's say you're shopping for a house. You go and you're looking for a house that's the absolute maximum you can afford, right? Like, oh yeah, the bank said I can buy this, so you're going to go buy the most expensive house that you can afford. Then you get to
let's do it.
Well, but here's what I found with my wealthy clients. They get to a point where they can afford a house that doesn't even exist in our local area, but that's not what they do. They figure out what's enough. Hey, if I get 5,000 square feet, that's more than enough. I don't need 15, even though they can afford 15. That's not how the vast majority of people shop for a house. They say, oh, the bank said I can borrow $500,000, so that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Wealthy
They'll
people,
pre-approve me for $800,000. I'm going to go buy an $800,000 home.
and you're not going to spend a penny less. Wealthy people could get approved for 5, 10 million. And guess what they might do? They might go spend 800,000 because it's enough for them. It's not about what the maximum they can have is. And I have found that a lot. And part of that is they're distinguishing their needs from wants. Like, what do we need? You got 1 kid, 2 kids. Do you need 10,000 square feet, or do you just want 10,000 square feet?
Yeah, and that's a big, yeah. The what you need from a house, a shelter perspective, and what most people want, it's pretty out of line. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting a nice house. I think most people want that and should have that. But it is a little over the top what we all think we need when they're really just wants.
They're all wants, because what you really need is shelter and heat and electricity and a little food. That's all you really need.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we preface needs as everybody needs to have their own bedroom and everybody needs to have a lot of space. Now, that's not really what you need. That's just what you want. And that's okay to have wants, but you can't want everything. Otherwise, there's not going to be very much prosperity in your life. You have a lot of things, but things aren't going to help you retire.
No, they won't. You probably do need a decent kitchen. Like, just being practical, you need a decent kitchen. Probably need a nice main living area. But
that's a want.
But that's
if you can afford it.
That's
yes.
really the rooms that people use. Like, I think about the house we live in. There's a finished basement downstairs that no one uses.
We don't use our basement.
Like, I use it. I got a desk down there I can work on, and there's a TV down there. But we use the living room and the upstairs, the kitchen, and then we sleep in the bedrooms. There's a lot of unused space.
We never,
from a day-to-day use perspective.
Our basement living room, we never use it. Very rarely does anybody ever go down to that.
Is it pretty nice down there?
I'd say it's pretty nice. It's not dingy. It's pretty nice. We don't use it. Yeah. I mean, my girls gravitate in the summer towards the porch and their iPad. Like, even our living
you guys
room,
have
we don't
like
even sit in our living room.
3 seasons porch, right?
Yeah, we don't even.
So do we. In the summertime, where do you think we spend our time?
3 season porch.
In the 600 square foot room.
Yeah.
Right.
Mine's not 600. You got a big one. Mine's not even 6.
I think it might not be that. It's probably, I don't know what it is. Yeah, I overshot that. It's not that big.
It's all right.
It's probably like 12 by 12. I don't know why I just said that.
That might be your want. 20 by 30.
No, 600 square foot. That'd be huge.
20 by 30. It's big,
definitely not that big. I don't know why I just said that.
Yeah, that's all right.
So
one of the things I really think people need to do to avoid, lifestyle inflation, or like we like to call it lifestyle creep. That's really what it is things creep in, is the people that have done a good job that we work with of not allowing this to happen. They have a pretty good budget. And I know part of our outline says a detailed budget. Most wealthy people, it's not that detailed. It's allocated. And they stick to the allocation. They're not saying, well, we have $72 for, cable this month. It's just like, hey, our utilities is $1,000 a month. It's not super detailed, but it's all properly allocated to where it's going to go. And they prioritized savings, and they've done it by automating it. It's just automatic. They never think about having to save.
So here's really where I think people do need a detailed budget. I think the person just getting started, new in their career, hasn't really built any financial habits. I think a detailed budget is very valuable for them. But I do think everyone graduates where you get to a point where like myself, I really only care about two numbers in the budget, and that's emergency fund. That needs to be where it needs to be, so we have cash to pay for stuff, and then the savings rate. So as long as I know we have cash to pay for stuff and I know we're putting enough away in our investment accounts, I don't really care about the spending beyond that. I honestly couldn't even tell you.
What you've done is you've given yourself the opportunity to spend the rest.
Yeah,
That's
and
what you've done.
I don't want to think about the details of, like, I don't have any energy to gain, or like I don't really have that much positive to gain to really get in the weeds on the details of our budget. But the two numbers I do care about, I do know, like, that's what's meaningful to me. That's what's gonna make everything work for the
your
long
wife's
term.
operating the rest of the house, and you're operating that part of it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's probably a unique situation too. I don't think there's that many situations where one person is operating the retirement emergency fund part of it, and the other person's doing the day-to-day bills. Most households, one person's doing it all.
Oh, when it comes to the finances?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think it's usually,
well,
I think
yeah.
that's a little bit of a unique situation. I think most families, one person does all the finances. The other person is managing some other part of the household.
Yep, I'm fortunate. My wife she takes care of the detailed budget and the money. So
You know what I remember one of our first podcasts we ever did? Your wife asked why you spent $3 and some odd change at Casey's for a slice of pizza.
yeah, she knows the details of the budget. I don't care about spending money at lunch.
But that's good. That is good.
Going out to lunch isn't going to change our life one way or the other.
No.
So
Well, one of the key strategies, though, once you have that budget, is automating the savings and investments. I'm yet to meet somebody who, other than a business owner, who's built a good amount of net worth or wealth by writing a check every single time they wanted to invest. It's almost always done because they've automated the process and made it regular and consistent.
that's why most people that have a big 401k, that's how it got that way. It was consistently contributed to, and money was put in and invested without any sort of consideration to, oh, is this a good time to buy? How should I trade this money? You know, how many people come into our office before they start working with us and their 401k money's in a target date fund? A lot of people just opt for that default target date option. Is it the best way to invest over time? Maybe, could be, maybe not. Certainly has worked for a lot of people.
I think you mentioned it removed the number one hurdle in investing. They didn't have to determine whether it was a good time or bad time to buy. They just bought. And over time, it'll all even out. I told you this story. My wife was, I do all the investing in the house. My wife's like, well, maybe we should, she asked me, why didn't we sell when things got crazy and then buy back in when it's lower? And I told my wife, I'm like, here's the deal. I understand myself as an investor. I'm not very good at determining when to sell things. But I'm pretty good at figuring out when to buy. Do you know why?
It's easier.
Well, yeah, because typically over 10 years it goes up, but it's hard to be wrong. And I use an example. I'd bought some individual stocks back in 2009, and I did really well on them. But I sold them because I had a nice profit. Guess
Probably
what?
should have held on to those.
If I wouldn't have held on to them, they would have been significant today with like 3 or 4 different ones. So I just told her, I said, hey, I'm not good at figuring out when to sell. So I'm just never going to sell unless, the company's going bankrupt. Otherwise, I'm not going to sell. I'm a buyer. It's easy to be a good buyer because in 10 years, most of the time, things will go up.
Well, and certainly if you're buying a diversified portfolio.
Individual stocks are a little different, yes.
Yeah.
But diversified portfolio, I think that's good that you preface that. There are stocks that don't go up for a decade.
That is, I think, being a good buyer. That's really all. If you just do that consistently, that's going to work out over time. And another overlooked area to avoid lifestyle creep, lifestyle inflation, and something that people should probably think about a little bit more than they do. But one of the worst things you can do is forget about your emergency fund. You should always have a sufficient emergency fund. And then I think, and if you are someone who, let's say you think the market's overvalued, right? Well, the market's high. There's nothing wrong with maybe increasing your cash. Like if you really think there could be a buying opportunity, you could increase the cash that you have. But things that you don't want to do is you don't want to use your emergency fund for stuff like that. Your emergency fund should just be truly for that. Something breaks, you get laid off. It's the money that's going to keep everything going if things get hard. And emergency funds are pretty popular right now, right? How many people are preparing for economic slowdown? We're just on another episode talking about people are stopping purchasing things. People are preparing for the uncertainty. Well, your emergency fund is going to be able to get you through the uncertainty. And it should be something that you've defined it some way. It could be 3 to 6 months. It could be just the maximum money you'd have to spend in a year. There's different ways to do it. You got to pick how you're going to define what you're confident in and then do it. But do not forget your emergency fund.
Well, and if you think about the people that are really good at not allowing lifestyle creep too, they have the ability to delay discretionary purchases. Good example. Probably a new iPhone is going to come out this fall. Well, do you need a new phone, or are you just buying it because there's a new phone? So I have a rule with my phone. I get a new phone when my battery won't make it till noon.
You have a battery that won't make it until noon?
Yeah.
That's happened to you before?
Yeah.
How?
If you are poor at charging your phone, it will kill the battery. Meaning, I like to leave it plugged in all the time.
Oh.
Kills battery life over time. So once my battery goes where I can only get through like half a day before the battery's dead on my phone, then it's time for a new one.
There you go.
And that's part of the way I don't get caught in the technology trap, because there's always a new gadget. It's kind of like fishing. You know, I love fishing, right? I could upgrade my electronics for fishing every single year because there's always something new and exciting out there. I don't do it. I'm pretty selective. I might upgrade one thing a year, but not all of them, because it hasn't changed that much. You kind of have to figure out, hey, how do I delay a purchase and not just always buy the newest and greatest thing? And you think about the psychology of companies. I talk about this with Brad all the time. You really think they're releasing all of their new technology today? Or do they have technology already planned for 3 years down the road that they're not going to release, because why would we give everything today? We have to make sales next year and the year after and the year after. So
I'm sure they're strategic.
I watch it.
They're not just,
It's like this incremental update that it's not totally game changing, but it's just enough to make you think you might need to do it. Right. And then by the time you do that,
a little bit more.
By the time you do that, they do it again the next year. And, you know, the electronics is where a lot of this happens, because technology is changing so quickly. But you have to really think about how much of a discretionary purchase is this, and do I really need to have this? Because this is really the way that lifestyle creep really happens. It doesn't happen with big purchases. People are aware when they go buy an $80,000 car.
Yes.
People are not aware, like your younger couple that moved to the country that you talked about in a previous episode. People are less aware when they hit the Amazon button.
Right.
I got in trouble the other day for buying in bulk. Do you know, did I tell you about this? Yeah, my wife's
No,
told.
how did you get in trouble?
Well, I have five.
What did you buy in bulk?
Some ground pork rinds to use for fish batter, but I bought like 6 containers because it
How big is a container?
Yay big,
Like a
big,
pound,
like a
or-
big mason jar. So I
Are
have
you going to
60.
use it?
Well, that's the question. Did I need 6 or could I got away with 1? But there were 3 flavors in 2-packs. So I bought the 6. I had to try all the flavors. Point is, and that's not a big purchase, but if you say, okay, that was $36 of something that I definitely didn't need.
Do that 10 different times.
It adds up. And how easy is it to go to Amazon and be like, oh, I need that. I need that. None of it's a need. Facebook, you get trapped into stuff you don't need on there too.
Just go look in the cupboards in your kitchen, right? And you'll see impulse buy.
It's out of
galore.
control. My pantry's out of control. I have more condiments.
Well, it's every kitchen.
I mean, okay, you're a barbecue guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That new barbecue sauce, that looks really good. How many barbecue sauces do you have at your house?
Very few.
Really?
Very few.
Huh?
I don't use, so I'm not a big seasoning person or rub person. Most of my recipes, salt and pepper.
But you don't use
some seasoning salt.
No barbecue sauce?
I will have them from time to time. I have my 2 favorites, but I don't think I have any barbecue sauce at the house right now.
I've got every sauce that Buffalo Wild Wing makes for chicken wings in my house.
Well, because when you make the food as good as I make it, you don't need all that sauce.
Here we go. No, but point is, those are all discretionary purchases. I think you can jokingly tell people you can nickel and dime yourself to poverty. That's how it happens. Most people, their discretionary purchases, when I say discretionary, they're thinking big items. Nah, it's all this little stuff that adds up over time. And you're like, where did all my money go? And it's all this little stuff that adds up to a lot. And the little stuff now is not so little. With inflation where it's
everything is expensive now.
Everything's expensive now.
Everything. Other than the Arizona teas, those are still $1.
What are Arizona teas? Is that a drink?
Yeah, it's like a big can of tea at the gas station. They've been 99 cents for like 25 years. They're inflation proof somehow.
Oh, did their can not go up? So they're just eating the margin.
Yeah, they just eat it. Yep. Another thing people can do, and one of the best ways to avoid lifestyle creep and inflation, in finance and financial planning call it apply the percentage rule. So it's really when you get a raise, you can look at different areas of your spending and then increase, right? So if you take all of your raise, let's say you got a 5% raise this year, and you increase your lifestyle by that 5%, you haven't done other things that you need to do or really should allocate dollars to. So maybe you decide, okay, half of my raise is going to go towards long-term savings. A quarter of my raise is going to go towards discretionary like vacation, travel, things outside of your day-to-day life. And then a quarter of those things go to lifestyle increase, just spending without really thinking about. And whatever those percentages are that you decide, it's not really super relevant. I think what is relevant is that what you do decide to do, you stick with it. And a lot of 401k plans offer, they call it the automatic escalator, right? Yep. Where you can set to give your 401k a raise 1%, any percentage per year up to a certain percent. And that's one of the most successful strategies I've seen people do. Let's say you're doing 10%, you're saving 10% today, and you decide to increase it 1% until it hits 20. So over the next decade, you're going to get to a place where you're saving 20% of your income. And did you really notice? Like, did you really feel like you were missing out or you were noticeably having to spend less? But those incremental increases over time really do pay off when you're looking at the big picture of wealth building throughout your working career.
I promise you they didn't miss the money. And here's the other thing that gets a little bit, as you get what we'll call critical mass. Once you hit $100,000 of like money saved, it gets easier to save more. And here's why. You actually start to see gains in your account.
It gets more fun. Yeah.
Yeah, the market goes up 15%. You're like, whoa, I went from 100 to 115. And then you get to 500,000. You're like, my account, when the market goes up 15%, went up $75,000. And it gets really kind of addicting where, your first 10,000 is the worst because it doesn't matter what the market does. You're just plodding along to get 10. And the more you get, the more fun it gets. But all of these things, what it reminds me of, Elias, is I think it's okay to have some lifestyle creep as long as it works in the context of your plan. You made a comment earlier in the show that, you're focused on two things: emergency fund, savings rate.
Mm-hmm.
You have those things right because it's in the context of your plan. The rest of your money that you then need to figure out how to allocate, some's going to be allocated towards, hey, this is our day-to-day spending that we need to have. The rest, if we want to have some lifestyle creep, it's okay now because we've taken care of the first two things: emergency fund and the long-term retirement savings. But the only way to really figure that out is to get a financial plan done and know what your numbers are, where you stand today, and what you need to do to accomplish what your goals are in the future.
I think that's one of the most valuable insights we can offer people that are doing a good job saving. Just for example, recently, young family doing a great job. They want to upgrade their house. Well, so really what we defined was like, what's the minimum you need to save every year to still be on track for your financial independence goal. So then once that number was quantified, and there's even with their upgrading their house, they're still going to save more than that minimum. But they kind of made a decision that, yes, we do want a different house, but we also don't want to sacrifice what it's going to take to hit financial independence at the time we want to. But after that is a pretty easy decision. And that was all modeled in the financial planning software.
Well, if anybody out there is looking to get a financial plan, you can go to btwellshow.com, click Get Started. Be happy to have Elias help you out with that. We appreciate everybody watching the show. You have any closing thoughts, Elias?
I do not, but thank you for listening.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments and Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide tax advice. Please consult your tax professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. There's no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. Dollar cost averaging involves continuous investment in securities regardless of fluctuations in price levels. Investors should consider their ability to continue purchasing through periods of low price levels. Such a plan does not assure a profit and does not protect against loss in declining markets. Consult your tax professional about eligibility to Roth and traditional IRA contributions. Contributions and earnings in a Roth IRA can be withdrawn without paying taxes and penalties if the account owner is at least 59 and a half and has held their Roth IRA for at least 5 years.